completely rebuilt my favorite freestyle quad, 8S motors, new stack, new power, and this thing screams performance. But the top speed? That really caught me off guard. So, is 8S the future of freestyle, or just expensive overkill? Let's find out. Hey guys, today I've got something pretty exciting for you. SEQURE might have just sent me the future of FPV quads, totally free. What I have here is a full 8S capable kit, including 8S motors, an 8S stack, and an ELRS receiver with dual antennas. Everything comes nicely packaged in sleek boxes. And I gotta say, I just love unboxing new gear. There's something oddly satisfying about it. Besides the flight controller and ESC, you also get a bunch of useful extras. Cables, stack screws, silicone dampers, even a buzzer and a capacitor. Though, that capacitor looks kinda different than what I'm used to seeing. The stack comes with an F7 flight controller and an AM32 ready ESC. And honestly, that was super important to me. Why? Well, ever since BL Heli 32 kinda disappeared overnight, I've been avoiding ESCs that don't support AM32. If you don't know what AM32 is, no worries, I've dropped a link in the info card. Quick version. It's an open source firmware for 32-bit ESCs. In theory, you could flash AM32 onto most BL Heli 32 ESCs, but you'd also need to flash the bootloader, and that part's not exactly plug and play. Anyway, back to the kit. There are actually two versions of this stack, a version with the popular MPU 6000 gyro, and another version with the ICM 42688P, which is the version I've got right here. That one is a bit more sensitive to electrical noise, but with a beefy capacitor like the one included, that's not a problem at all. The flight controller has 6 UARTs, OSD, a barometer, 16 megabytes of black box storage, 5 volt 2.5 ampere, and 10 volt 2 ampere BECs. The 10 volt one is perfect if you're running something like the DJI O3 or the O4. Plus, you get large, well-labeled solder pads and easy mounting, thanks to support for both 20 by 20 and 30.5 by 30.5 mounting holes. What more could you ask for? Now, let's talk about these motors. They feel super solid, but weight-wise, they're actually not heavier than my 6S Velox Phi 3 motors. I'm really curious to see how much they can take in a crash. My Velox motors have survived some serious abuse. One even has a missing magnet, and they're still running fine. These motors are 1500 kV with a standard 2207 stator size for a 5-inch build. But the bell design looks a lot beefier than usual. The ELRS receiver is honestly a gem. True diversity, 1000 Hz option for racers or 100 Hz for maximum range. You can even choose which two antennas to use. I went with one long and one short. Alright, let's not waste time on unnecessary details. I'm just gonna rip out all the 6S components and swap everything over to 8S. For this, I'll be upgrading my geprc Mark V. That means pulling out the speedybee stack, Velox motors and the receiver. My Mark V has been through a lot, and you can definitely tell just by looking at it. So I'm gonna give it a quick cleanup. Let me know in the comments if you'd like a full review of the geprc Mark V frame. I'm also adding a GPS module to get some extra data, and to make the test as fair as possible, I'll be flying this exact frame with both 6S and 8S setups, so we can compare the results properly. Installing the 8S gear is pretty much the same as any 6S build. The ESC has diagonally placed motor pads, and I actually kinda love that. Makes soldering a bit easier. Quick tip, if you solder the motors first, the ESC will already be preheated a bit. Makes it way easier to get a solid connection when doing the XT60. I always solder the ESC directly inside the frame. That way, I can get the cable lengths just right, and nothing moves around while I'm working. Speaking of cable lengths, I like to leave them a bit longer at first. You can always trim them later, but adding length, not so easy. One more safety tip. I covered the ESC with tape while soldering, just to avoid tiny solder splashes from causing any sneaky shorts. I didn't bother doing that on the speedybee ESC, since it's already protected by a heatsink. If you want to see how I build and protect my stacks in more detail, check out my Mark V build video. It's linked in the info card. Now, soldering the XT60 connector to the ESC was a bit more tricky than my speedybee. Took me forever. just to get the XT60 soldered on. Might be my soldering gear, but man, that speedybee ESC felt easier to work with, even with its big heatsink. The FC has a plug for the receiver, which is awesome, but weirdly, no plug for GPS and no 5-volt pad that stays powered via USB. So yeah, if you want your GPS to lock satellites, you'll need to plug in a battery. Kinda a downgrade from the speedybee, where you could just plug in a power bank and chill. Speaking of plugs, the O3 connector placement is just close enough. Any further forward and we'd have issues. The dual antenna receiver, super easy install. Setup was a breeze. And performance? Pretty sick. I was getting -20 in spots where I usually see -40 or -45. And here it is, the final build. Doesn't look crazy, just like any 6S quad, except for that big 8S battery on top. Now here's something worth talking about, the battery. This isn't actually an 8S pack. I'm running two 4S packs in series using an adapter. Why? Well, 8S batteries and chargers are still kinda rare. The charger I want is sold out everywhere right now, and I wanted to get this video out to you guys as soon as possible. So this adapter setup it is. Together the packs give me 1300 mAh at 8S, and the total weight with adapter and everything comes out just under 800 grams, about 100 grams heavier than my 6S build. So why go 8S? What's the point of bumping up the voltage? It's a good question. I mean, 1500 kilovolt on 8 series should perform similar to a higher kilovolt motor on 6 series, right? Well, here's the deal. When you raise the voltage, you can push the same power through less current. Example, 100 watts at 25 volts needs just 4 amps. But at 10 volts, you'd need 10 amps for the same power. Less current means thinner wires, less heat, and more efficiency. And yeah, higher voltage means lower power losses in the form of heat. Then, time to unleash the beast. With 8Ss, the voltage sag is noticeably better, especially on punch-outs. You can hear that the RPMs stay higher, longer. Overall, it flies just like 6F, but with more headroom. Surprisingly, the extra weight didn't really bother me. I mean, just listen to the punch-outs. Before the flights, I actually had this idea in mind. How could I properly compare 6S and 8S? One of the ideas was to test top speed using GPS. But honestly, that didn't really work out. I expected more. It was windy and I did test in both directions, but still. This setup's not really tuned for speed though, but see for yourself. I pushed it to the limit. And funny enough, when I went back to 6S, I actually hit a higher top speed. Why? Probably the props. My 6S motors are 2050 kV. The 8S ones are 1500 kV, so the 8S motors just aren't spinning as fast. I think these props are too low pitch for 8S. Let me know in the comments, do you want to see a proper top speed test with different props? How important is that info to you? And which props would you recommend for this setup? But I've gotta say, flying 8Ss is fun. You do feel that extra punch. You can hear it too. There's more overhead, more throttle response. Acceleration just hits harder, and the motors spool up quicker. 6S is solid, no doubt, but flying 8S gives you that extra kick. It's like everything's turned up just a notch. 8S is actually more efficient by design, so if you fly it smart, it can even give you more flight time, not less. So, is 8S worth it? That's a tough one, and I don't think there's a simple yes or no answer. The better question is, who is 8S really for right now? And honestly, I'd say long-range pilots, maybe racers or anyone building a serious cinelifter. For Freestyle, 8S isn't a must. It's definitely cool to have that extra punch, but it also comes with some downsides. A whole new battery ecosystem, a new charger, new components. I don't think 2025 is the year to suddenly go all in on 8S. Also, these components from SEQURE aren't exactly budget-friendly. The stack costs around $120, and the motors are about $25 each. That's quite a bit more than my budget 6S setup. For example, the speedybee V4 stack is just $65, and the Velox motors go for about $15. And let's be honest, when you're flying freestyle, stuff breaks. A lot. So it just doesn't make sense financially, at least not for me. Still, I'm really curious if one day 8S freestyle builds will be as normal as 6S is now. But where does it end? With every extra cell, the complexity of the components increases. You need a beefier charger, heavier batteries, more dead weight that doesn't directly give you more flight time or performance. Let me know in the comments what you want me to test with this setup.